Everyone, welcome to Human Resources. It's August 15, 2024. The time is 10 a.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. In attendance are Commissioners Matari and Duncan. Commissioner Brooks is excused. Are there changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Public comment? Hearing none. Our first item is Countywide Open Positions Overview with our Human Resources.
Yes, Sylvia Proud for the record. Every month I try and give the board an update on where we are with our open positions. And as of August 13th, we had 96.66 open positions. That's 7.4% less than a year ago at the same time. We do have 39 of those positions are funded at 50%, with our full fiscal year of 50% funded positions was total of 58. Hard to fill positions, we still have about 58 of them, and that's, when I say that, I mean detention deputies, attorneys, echoes, patrol, custody techs, that design professional, like landscape architect for community development has been open since the start of our fiscal year. So we were happy to see the number under 100. Haven't seen that one in quite a while, so we'll make some movement, and then when the public defender's office transitions to the state, of course, that's going to reduce our number of open positions by probably 20, somewhere around there. So, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, item 2. Reclassification. This is a review of the FY25 Deputy Director reclassification request.
Real quick, I'm sorry. The airport director's on his way.
Oh,
He
okay.
is just a couple minutes out on traffic.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to wait for him or if you want to just go ahead and start, but I think he has some comments too.
I would like for Gaston to be here and involved in the discussion. I think that'd be important. So should we do the other 2 items?
Well, they're executive session, so.
If you want to wait.
Yeah, I mean, we can wait. It's
okay.
That's fine.
Want to do just like a quick 3-minute recess or something?
Yeah, we can just recess till he gets here, so.
Okay.
Yep, however long it is. the record, and we are on item 2, reclassification of FY25 Deputy Director. And Gaston, did you want to start us off?
Sure, I can definitely do that. Gaston Patterson, Airport Director for the record. We are reintroducing the Deputy Airport Director position in our new fiscal year here. And I guess historically, the position was a grade 12, from what I understand. And the airport is seeking for it to be a 14. I think we just need to have some discussion on justification, what has changed since that position was out to now, how this looks for the future, how we want to phase different things, and how we want to go about it. So I'm able to answer any questions or take Sylvia lead on this. So.
Okay. Did you want to add anything?
Sure. Thank you. We did put it through our Corn Ferry job evaluation system, and there were significant changes to the job descriptions that triggers that. The position had not been looked at since 2016, and then it was frozen in 2020. So it's pretty much a natural thing to start looking at it, and with all the changes that Gaston had recommended, Lexi and Zach did the Corn Ferry evaluation method, and some of the things they found, required specialized knowledge. There's complexity of airport operations. They're shifting grant responsibilities from the compliance administrator, I think that's the title, to the deputy director. So that had weighed into it as well.
So will we regrade that compliance position then?
We did look at it. Did we regrade it? We did not regrade it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But is that something that we would do if you're taking some responsibilities away from that position?
We would, and I know there was some question about both job descriptions, deputy director versus the compliance administrator, and having overlap between those two. The compliance administrator job description was recently rewritten, and I know they have a new version of that doesn't. There was some overlap between the positions, and we just need to make a clear delineation between those two. So. To answer your question, yes, that would be reevaluated as well.
And we could, if everything shifts for the compliance administrator, I think that'd be a perfect time to be looking at it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think this is just an oversight, but maybe not. Under certificates, licenses, and registrations, ability to obtain a Class A CDL within 6 months of hire. Do you still need that for the deputy director?
That should have been removed from there.
Okay.
Correct.
So we'll likely want to remove that.
Now, are we going to hire for this position? Is it going to be advertised?
We definitely can advertise for it. We do have personnel that do fit this description very well and currently do most of this job in-house. So we do have many options in-house and outside as well.
Was the description written for somebody in-house?
No, it was pretty much rewritten with this is pretty boilerplate to what you would see at most airports for a deputy director. So there was outside boilerplate job description brought in, what we do at our airport. Tailor this to our airport. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't apply to our airport that was filtered out of here. I know this was a lot longer job description too. But this one, it's pretty tailored to what we would do here.
Okay, so I noticed a couple of things, and we've talked a little bit about some of this stuff. The position went from assisting in the budget to responsible for the budget. So this person will do all the budgeting.
Correct.
And you won't do any budgeting as the airport director.
So I oversee the budget as the airport director. Essentially, the way our airport is stuck right in the middle of being a small general aviation airport to really moving into that regional large category airport. At the regional level, you start to see different terms and job descriptions come out, where the deputy director is the executive director of airports, or they're the CEO of the airport authority.
Operations.
Correct. Or then you would have a COO, who's the chief of operations, or at a smaller airport, operations manager. The deputy director at most airports is the CFO. They would be considered the CFO of the company, so the chief financial officer. While the director is overseeing the entire budget, implementing the budget, the CFO is really in the budget, yes.
And who currently does the airport certification manual?
That is split between, I mean, that's wholly my responsibility right now, the director.
So does that get taken away from your job description now?
No, that is definitely a multifaceted, that would be spread amongst the director, deputy director, and some of the compliance administrator as far as property. So as we start to restructure the way the airport looks, the compliance administrator, they are more of a property manager. So at a different airport, you would be the leasing and property coordinator manager for different airports. So that's, with the growth that the airport has seen in the last 10 years, that would take that person's time almost 98% of the time throughout the day, is just managing the leasing and contracts with the airport.
Mm-hmm. But it would be the same grade?
That's something we'd have to reevaluate for the compliance administrator, or if we start to look at renaming that or reclassifying that to a property manager, property and contracts administrator or something like that. Definitely something we could look at.
Well, I mean, I guess, the question I kind of have, and this is where, being the junior commissioner here, I'm always trying to figure out, well, why are things being done a certain way, right? Like, why are we approving an org chart before we're looking at the positions? And how that affects the pay within these departments. And so, I see a couple of things with the airport. You've grown a lot in the last few years, and you have people who are doing certain positions that are going to be doing the same exact work in this position. And yet I don't see any activity for reclassifying those jobs simultaneously so that we can look at the forest and not focus on each individual tree. Mm-hmm. Because what happens is that, well, you approved A, or you approved C, so therefore you must approve A and B.
Right.
And so we don't have those conversations. Now, I know that there's been conversations, I believe, between your department and HR where the positions are very different than the rest of the county. I mean, you've got firefighter certifications, you've got, just
very specialized.
Yeah, very specialized, very tailored. And it doesn't seem like any of that is being addressed as well. Mm-hmm. So my question is, why not? Why not looking at this holistically as opposed to just creating these positions, tailoring them for individuals, bringing it before the board, and we don't even know what it is we're approving, what it's going to look like. What is this forest going to look like if I approve this tree today?
Right.
What is your vision for that?
I think we do need to take an overall, like the 10,000 look view of what the overall organization looks like at the airport as we move forward. What is the airport looking like moving forward? What has changed in the last 10, 15 years at the airport? Where do we want it to be? So I definitely agree. Like, we need to look from the top all the way down, what that organizational chart looks like. What do our positions look like? What do those do? And not every department's very specialized at the county. The airport is extremely unique in that. So it's very hard to compare pretty much any position at the airport to any other position at the county when you look at just a simple pay matrix. It's like, where do they fit in that? Airports are extremely specialized. When I look at airport jobs, job classifications, you pretty much, everyone is on what's called AAAE, the American Airports Executives Association. That is where, if we were going to look outside for a deputy director, that is where we would advertise. I can say right now, if we were to publish that job description at our 14 we would not receive one application at its rate. It's severely under where it should be for an airport of our class and our business and our clientele. So I definitely agree that it would be very prudent to look at it as an umbrella over the airport itself, and possibly look at our own pay matrix for the airport and reevaluate everything with a study.
I mean, it just, I look at the job description, right, and I just ask, why are certain things being removed? Like, for example, maintaining a good driving record. I don't understand, one, how did it get there? Why is it there? And why would it be removed? Wouldn't you want someone to maintain a good driving record? What if their driving privileges were suspended?
Absolutely.
Does that mean that all they have to do is just pass this annual test at the airport driving certification,
Right.
but not have a driver's license?
Exactly.
So I don't understand why that was removed. I see that this position was ARF certified for firefighting, but that's been removed. I don't know if there's a reason for that.
So there's a difference in the way the airports are structured now. You have your command structure and your firefighter structure. So essentially, the director and deputy director are federally certified command staff. So they still do all the EVOC training. They're the incident commanders. They basically fulfill the role of a chief or battalion chief. And then all of the operational staff, they're the ones that are doing the 40-hour live burn certification as far as the truck operations, apparatus operations, and all those federal certifications. So it's split into two facets in there. So that should be reflected in here, is maintaining the EVOC certification, being able to test for that. And
Was that in here?
I believe it was added to the new one. Yeah.
What page is that?
Marked up version, so you have,
It's the first page. It's like the second paragraph.
yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
And then the other thing that kind of stood out was just, the language, mathematical, reasoning, technology, and equipment skills were all kind of removed along with vision. And they seem to be very well organized as far as what you're looking for. And here we've taken them out and kind of in some form or another taken a partial blend and just kind of inserted it throughout. And and part of what stands out is, for example, the ability to read and understand blueprints, construction documents, technical data. Use engineering architectural rulers to determine distances. Now, I realize the rulers may not be, relevant today, but does one need to understand blueprints for this job?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of this was, when they restructured this job description, it was to take the new format of the way I guess we're writing job descriptions. That's why, like, comparing the old 10-year ago deputy director position job description to this one, that's how a lot of this format was changed in that process. So we can definitely bring elements of that back into it as we go down this road, but that's largely why the format is so much different between the two.
I mean,
In 2020, we started the job description project, and this language is more like summarize the key essential functions and the skills, and is being eliminated from all of them, and we're asking departments to build, if there's something specific, into your essential functions or the job requirements. This may have been way before me, probably 20 years ago, that they were including this type of language. And so we do still include just a general paragraph about your physical demands and work environment, because we do need that sort of information if we have an ADA request for an accommodation. But a lot of that was duplication.
yeah, it seems like it was very well written back then as far as what you're looking for, the qualifications. Do you have these skill sets that, what it does is it makes it very tangible. So when you're talking with somebody, if they're going to be responsible for coordinating with consultants and contractors in the design and construction of airfield improvements, well, reading blueprints would seem like a very specific skill set that one should have. And so that's where, because it becomes a little more abstract, a little more ambiguous, how do you hone in on these skill sets if they're not spelled out in an interview and comparing it to a resume and so forth.
Right. So the job description is supposed to be a brief, general overview of the job, and then we've asked departments either to, if they need extensive information, like these are the kind of tasks you're doing, to create their own, like a task list that they can then share with the
Well,
individuals who are applying for the position and transitioning to it.
so now you say brief overview of the job?
Yeah, you want to highlight, what is the position going to do? What is the requirements? What are the essential duties? And if the blueprinting piece is critical, I think we should add it to an essential function or under the experience and knowledge. But you want to keep job descriptions to about 2 pages.
Yeah. I guess, when it comes to Korn Ferry, I don't understand how it works. It's this mystical software program. So when I hear words like brief to me means that it's more ambiguous, and Korn Ferry has way more leeway on how it comes out with stuff because it's ambiguous, because it's brief, versus specific, detailed, and so forth. And because of the technical nature of the airport, you would think you would want more detail, more specifics, right? As opposed to these general, have you worked at an airport in the last 5 years? Do you have a pulse? That's great.
Right.
You're hired.
Yeah.
Right. So this to me is a huge jump, the way I see it. And I kind of feel like we should at least have a third commissioner to weigh in on this, because there's 2 issues here. There's what your Korn Ferry came up with for this particular position, and then there's also the airport as a whole, and what is that going to look like? I am all for setting up the airport to look like how it should be from a market perspective. I get concerned when we start crafting positions that we want and not understanding how that fits into the scheme of things. What do you want this to look like? And I'm completely for that. I think that you are probably one of the most capable people that has ever run the airport. I certainly don't want to question your judgment on these things, but I do have a little bit of concern about the way we're doing this. The fact that normally you need an elected official in case of any department under the BOCC, 2 elected officials to kind of go through this. And I'm sorry, but past exposure to different methodologies that stand out to me has kind of made me a little more scrutinize some of these processes a little more. So largely because we have another department that we're working on. I don't know where that is. We keep coming up with these ulterior ideas, I guess, on structure that still to me don't make complete sense, but perhaps we can talk about it in front of the board not too far off into the distant future and figure this out. I still would like to talk a little bit more about, the job descriptions and how they relate to other places. Did this job description ever get compared to other airports for deputy directors?
No, we haven't.
Is there a
do
reason
our
why we
initial-
don't?
If the departments bring us that information, we look at it. What we'd suggest, being that the airport is so unique, that when we do the wage study, we separate the airport operation side and have our consultants do a study of its own, because anytime we do a wage study, we don't get airport information. So that would be a great opportunity to say, okay, we want all the positions within the airport looked at. Here's the job descriptions. We tell them what the market is, and our consultant will align that and then bring back hopefully some information to us on wages and stuff.
Yeah, okay.
We did also try and find a comparable airport in Idaho, and we really struggled to find anything that was reasonably
Do you have a benchmark of airports that are similar to yours?
Absolutely. I have that list. I mean, we are the next busiest, largest airport to Boise. So it is, there's very few in the state of Idaho. Sun Valley, maybe, Haley, Idaho would be a comp, but we're looking at Pullman, Helena, Spokane,
Yeah, outside of Idaho.
Glacier. You know, these are all, even like Denver, Centennial, not Denver International, but Centennial. Those are comps to our airport. Those are airports that have, when you look at what is a comp, it has to be a 139 airport. It has to have multiple runways. You have to look at the size of the airport, the actual physical property size. What are you maintaining? Your clientele that services the airport. What kind of businesses industry do you have on your airport? So in the state of Idaho, that's what I mean. We're second to Boise. So it's definitely not, there are not going to be comps that are in our county around us. We're not even on the same spectrum as the local airports to us. So,
Yeah.
And there are different classifications for the airports, because we did get that information to look at, and, you know, a lot of those airports have that commercial piece with passengers and luggage and security and stuff. So we just have to work out that piece beyond the 139 classification, see how that'll work. And that's working with you and Gaston and the consultants on what airports are the match for
Yeah,
us.
well, you know, the airport's grown a lot, and, you know, Gaston's taken it over, and I think you've looked at it from a much more holistic perspective, you know, and I appreciate that, and I'm fully in support, because I recognize the challenges. We talked about some of the pay differences for people, and we have to decide what kind of airport we want to be, the one that plucks people from the other airports around here, or the one that is a training facility for the other airports around here. And decide how that's going to work best. But there is this creep that's going on right now, and we just have to make sure that we do this right the first time. I'm completely supportive of doing this right, but it comes across, if we're going to create this one position and not look at how it affects the other positions, because there's overlap in duties, then we're going to be going through this process multiple times and not understanding where we're going to go.
So will you sign the reclass for that compliance position?
Yeah, I mean, I want to understand it all. I'm like I said, I'm okay with the way that the grade was for this position before until we understand everything else. But without understanding everything else, how do we know 14's even right? Maybe it's a 16. You know, and I wish that we would, you know, have a policy for how we do this and not, you know, have this loophole depending upon the time of year. It's the same thing with these mid-year changes for additional personnel. They automatically get rolled into the next year's budget, and then, you know, we're capped, where our hands are tied.
Yep. I've mentioned that several times during
Your tenure?
Just this last year, during mid-year changes.
Yeah,
That
well-
this is affecting, it's going to force us to take tax increase.
Well, you have an ally sitting right here on that one, moving forward for sure.
So where do we move forward from this? Because this is the process that Sylvia kind of honed and her team and all that since I've been here, because it was, like Darren said, the wild, wild west before Sylvia got here. So it's really taken on a good path. And I don't disagree that we should look at things, you know, have a special HR meeting at budget time with all of the new positions that are being asked for in the budget. That way we can separate that out. I just have done it on my own whenever we do whenever I'm studying for the A budget meeting, the personnel one, then I go through and if there's any questions or issues, then I reach out to the department requesting the position. But I think having a special HR meeting to go through these different things and address the new positions requested, I think would be a good process change. And then, so what are we doing with this? Because our policy and procedure now is the department head works with HR, says these are the duties for this position that I need. Korn Ferry goes through and they do their process through that. And then we come up with a suggestion.
Well, at this point, I don't have an issue with keeping it in the budget, but that doesn't mean it's approved. What it means is that I think the entire board should be here to talk about this and kind of digest it a little bit and have a game plan for the airport. Because right now, the only thing that I'm really aware of for the airport that's official is this one position. Is there, you haven't done anything official as far as, let's start looking at all these positions, let's start, looking at this airport and how the structure within the airport should really be.
No, and I think that would be direction from the board between myself and HR to start that study, to officially start a study. What does that look like? Bring options to the board on pay matrix and overall classifications and everything from the top down. So
In the 2025 budget, there was the request to add a shop lead. So that is a new position being added. And it's approved as of this point with the balanced budget.
Well, I think you have more equipment now that just requires a lot more maintenance. So I don't want to do anything that would impede you being able to keep the operations going.
Sure.
On that side. But we are changing duties. There are still overlap within all the different departments. If you take all the job descriptions and lay them down, there's overlap, right? So we haven't done that yet.
I think there's going to be that in most departments, though, because if one person is gone, you can't have everything fall apart or stop. You have some overlapping duties. Upstairs on the BOCC, we absolutely do. Right now, Terry and Leanna are gone, and so Michelle is able to continue and get our agendas out and complete the business packet. So there are overlapping duties in departments all the time.
Well, that is good. That's a best practice for, in case somebody gets hit by a bus, yes. But as far as the job descriptions, which the way I learn how this is working is that these job descriptions drive pay, right? So if you have everyone overlapping everything, then it just keeps driving the pay up higher. What you're really looking for are people who support and people who are responsible. And so that if the person is responsible leaves on Friday, the person who is supporting it can fill that position on Monday and has some acclimation to the process, not necessarily because they're responsible for it.
And typically, if they're just filling in for those duties, like you might say the deputy director serves as the airport director during his absence or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be minimal vacations or something, hopefully. Nothing like a bus or whatever, maybe win lottery. But, if they're just serving as a backup in someone's absence, it's not really going to affect the grade. It's not going to raise it because of that. I mean, they'd have to be doing it a significant amount of time. Is it 50% of the time or whatever?
Well, do you track that? Because, I'm hearing these job descriptions are a little more general, a little more vague. So do you have percentages built into the amount of time? Like, for example, if we have a compliance person, right now that compliance person has, I believe, grant stuff in there, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So are you going to wean that down to 20%? And over here on the director side, make it 80 to 100%? How does that work?
Well, you would have to do like a workforce analysis for that, and that might be something eventually we could take on or use that as you're looking at maybe restructuring the airport. We do a workforce analysis and say what percentage of time does it take to do these specific duties by each position. What's like the average, and then you determine how many FTEs you want from that. So you can do those types of analysis, but that hasn't been done in the county.
Sounds like an absolutely horrible endeavor to have to take on.
Mm-hmm. Big. Yep. Yeah, very time consuming, kind of like the project you're doing. There's a lot of thought process that has to go into it, like the improvement process for community development. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's critical. It's very important, but it takes a little bit of time to do it, and maybe you chip away at it. Yeah. One department at a time.
See, when we're not doing that, then it becomes subjective. And when it becomes subjective, it's really who's entering the information in. It sounds like that determines the output from this Corn Ferry.
With Corn Ferry, it's very scriptic of, here's the guideline for this. This is what you're looking for. And on the job description, we use that as our base, you know. And then when you're doing internal alignment, what other positions internally match with these same kind of knowledge requirements, know-how, and those factors, the accountability and the flexibility to make the decisions on their own. So you look at several pieces of it.
Yeah.
And the Corn Ferry process is vetted and it's defensible in court. So that's why that model's used a lot throughout the country. They've taken the time to challenge it and, you know, streamline it and make it efficient. That here's the standard, here's what you look at. If it's this, it gets the score. If it's this, it gets that.
Look,
So
I'm still in awe over the fact that whether your title is manager or vice president, it doesn't change the pay rate. So that to me is, you know, I'm still trying to, you know, digest that.
Well, yeah, because we have grade 8s that are chief budget officer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's, you know, that, yeah, the title doesn't come into play during the system. It's all the job duties, the actual things, the
Yeah.
performance in the position.
Yeah. So, no, I get it. In the private sector, if you can't give them money, give them a title. You know?
Not
You-
here in the government sector.
Yeah.
Well, so, okay.
So where are you at with this? What,
With me? Oh, I just said I think that the entire board should look at this. Just put it on the next HR meeting.
okay, I won't be here, but,
And the one after that.
okay.
I mean, you know, this has been around for a while, so we could have talked about this, you know, prior. It's not like this was just conjured up since Monday, right?
No, it started back during budget season.
Yeah, back in
And
May.
May
then
7th.
May 7th was the department head meeting. June 20th was about the date that Brandy started covering the personnel requests with the board, and line by line, several times she did that. Okay, are we keeping, do you want to keep this? Do you want that sort of thing? So it's been looked at, you know, but the fine detail that you're requesting, no, it didn't reach that level.
Yeah. But there was time for that, and is what I'm getting at, that we could have talked about this. You know, when was it going to be presented? In September after we approved the budget?
No, May
No.
7th when the department presented their budget.
No, I meant this, what we're doing right now for HR. When was that? You saying we've already approved this?
So this is my experience, in the budget process, somebody asks for a new position.
Mm-hmm.
So I go through in my own due diligence and I look, okay, does that make sense? Is that reasonable? What's the history on it? And so it doesn't fall into the typical thing, and that's why I'm suggesting we do that separate HR meeting going forward. But when I do my due diligence, I figure out, okay, you know, Gaston knows what he needs. I know what the previous position was. It was only here a year when I was here. Then it got reorganized, and that's just kind of how it's typically been held, even before Sylvia was here. I mean, decades. Yeah. So it's fine time to change it. But yeah, this would have gone forward as a part of the budget approval process, just like we approve in HR. That budgetary component of the reclass, that's where it would have been.
Yeah.
Done.
Well, I can say with absolute confidence, and I'm not suggesting this at the airport, but there are processes that are occurring that are highly inefficient that could free up a lot of staff time. And so I'm reluctant to just automatically put staff in because somebody says it without understanding are we operating efficiently? And I can't really talk with you about these things offline as much because they're not in public meeting, but I can tell you that we have some very major loops going on right now where work just keeps piling up. And then we get requests for more staff because we don't have enough people to handle this circular workload of the same people, same clients for the county. And in fact, feedback was given to me where one person said that if we can implement this, they may stick around in the county for longer because they're so fed up and exhausted of trying to address some of these issues. So to me, I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit for improving our processes so that we can actually do this with either the same amount of people for a very long period of time or let some staff attrit out and get more workload done with fewer people.
So are you kind of suggesting what Sylvia said and just go department by department and do that deep dive and make sure that everybody is doing what the job descriptions say they're doing?
What I'm suggesting is that once I finish with community development, I'd like to look at some other departments because I think there's huge opportunities there.
And are you doing this with community development, going through each
Oh, yeah,
position? And
Well, no, what we've started to do is to flow chart what they do. They don't have information to tell them what's happening within their own organization. So we flow charted the building permit process, and then we, and I know we're going off script here, flow charted the building permit process, and then we identified where we want to log the events with date timestamps. So we can see, well, how long does your application sit at the planning department, the planners? How long is it sitting there? And then we'll look at the overall amount of time. So if I were to ask you now, what do you think is a good turnaround time for a building permit? What is our standard of service? What is our level of service?
it should be 2 to 3 weeks, but I think it's 3 to 4 months right now.
Yeah, well, that's a big problem.
Yep.
And until we figure out the time it takes to go through each step, we won't know, well, where is the problem? Where is it sticking, right? And we have a lot of it where it gets kicked out and then back in, kicked out, back in. We have planners who are calling clients, chasing after them. We pay a lot of money for these people. They should be doing planning work.
Yeah, no,
So,
that's good. It's just not going to be the same for each department. That's all.
Well, I appreciate the part about that, but in the end, this is an organization. It has events, it has processes, and it's really about just making it more efficient.
Can we get a priority list? So after community development, this is the next department. This is the
Oh,
next department.
let me get through the first one.
Okay.
Let's get some reports. The goal is by the end of this month, we will start logging the events. And then by December 1, we should have enough data so that we can actually start putting together reports and determining where the bottlenecks are in the process, how many inputs of applications are coming in, how many outputs are we putting out in the same time period. It's actually, this is classic business 101 stuff.
Good. Well, glad you're here to take that on.
Well, I'm hoping I can show you a little bit about how to do it too, so.
Well, I have my strengths. You have yours.
Well, I won't be here forever, but.
I won't either.
I suspect you'll be here a lot longer than me, so.
All right, so we'll put this back for September. And I don't think there's anything else on this one, but I guess there's a couple tweaks that you'll be able to make.
So essentially, just to clarify, moving forward, we're keeping the position. It's just going to remain at the grade it was at before, the 12, essentially.
I don't think we're there yet.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
The full board will take a look and then
Okay.
discuss it.
Yeah, so.
Commissioners, our next meeting is September 5th. As I understand, that would be after the budget. So would we want to bring this to the board earlier?
No, because it's, to me, it's multifaceted. It's safe to leave it in the budget. They're self-generating revenue, so that doesn't hurt us either way. We're going to work on, is this the right position? Is this the right organization chart for the airport? And we'll be able to also work on potentially carving that one department out for the wage study. So we actually have some apples to apples comparisons, and we might have to just, stick with the western region and go outside of Idaho, which I think Gaston already has a lot of that stuff assembled. So it'll be pretty easy for HR to work on that. So I think, is it more like a process that you want to use to address this, or you want Bill to chime in to say he's happy with this job description and to approve it, or what specifically are you looking for the next step?
Well, again, I'm just trying to understand a little bit about, all these changes, the additional pay. Where does that fit in? How does that look for what you want in the long run? What are we going to use? We're saying yes to a tree without understanding what it is we're building. And that's the part that I have a little bit of an issue with, because we're always presented with these tiny little decisions, right? Not knowing where it's going to end up, and then we end up with something that is unrecognizable. And that, for all intents and purposes, is why we ended up doing the reorg with RMO. Because we ended up with something that was never meant to be this way. Because we're always making these tiny little decisions without saying, where should it be? What do we want it to look like? And why are we doing it this way? And that way, the successors can look at this and say, is it still doing what we want? Does it make sense? And it seems like that's the way we do things here. These tiny little decisions that lead to these pictures that don't look like necessarily anything that make a lot of sense.
And a lot of it has to do with the fact if you have two commissioners who want to go a certain direction, that's the direction you go. So I fought for 4 years on a lot of these things that I think should have been done differently. So it's a good time to continue the process, continue to make things better, and we will get back to this in September.
Excellent.
Okay, now we are ready to go into executive session. We have 2 items that can be handled in the one session. Is there a motion?
I move that we enter into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2061B.
Second.
Commissioner Matari?
Aye.
Chair Duncan?
Aye. 11 o'clock. Is there a motion?
I move that we exit executive session 1B with staff to proceed as discussed.
Second.
Commissioner Matari?
Aye.
Chair Duncan?
Aye. Public comments? Hearing none. 11 o'clock. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.